Hello, world. What is up? Welcome to Build. I'm your host, Matt Forte, and we are here live at the Build Studio in New York City. Now, it is no secret that multiple myeloma has hit very close to home in the baseball community. The late, great Don Baylor battled with multiple myeloma for more than 14 years. That's why our guests are rallying together with Amgen to launch a new awareness campaign, Myeloma MVP. The Myeloma MVP campaign is aimed to help patients with multiple myeloma create their most valuable plan to best manage the disease. So here to talk to us about this amazing campaign, son of the great Don Baylor himself, Don Baylor Jr. is here. I'll hold for applause. Don's pretty amazing. And while you're going, keep it going, because joining him is 12-time All-Star, World Series champion, and member of the National Baseball Hall of Fame, Mr. Dave Winfield is here. How about that? How about Dave, huh? So some amazing people are here to talk to us. We're going to bring them out in just a moment. But before we do, first, I believe we have a PSA we're going to take a quick look at. So let's go ahead and run that clip.
Every seat here represents one of the 30,000 Americans who will be diagnosed with multiple myeloma this year.
Although this blood cancer is rare, it hits home to the baseball community.
Each of us knows someone who has been touched by multiple myeloma, like being hit by an inside fastball. But the right strategy can help you manage the disease.
Introducing Myeloma MVP, your most valuable plan.
Navigating this complex disease is a team effort. Your most valuable plan helps you, your family, and your oncologist determine your plan together so you can work towards your personal treatment goals.
If you or someone you love is up against multiple myeloma, you're not alone. Go to myelomaexplained.com to learn more about the disease and how to create a plan.
And put your MVP into play today.
Ladies and gentlemen, keep it going. Dave Winfield, Don Baylor Jr. right here. Come on. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us and being here. Welcome to the show.
Matt, hey, I love your format. Haven't been here before. I've heard about it. Glad to be here in New York.
We're super excited, man. It's so great to have you here, and there's a lot of exciting things to talk about and a lot to get into with the campaign, which naturally we're going to spend a lot of time talking about it. But first, I always love to start. I've got a couple of minutes here with you guys. Very simple question. Just how are you doing? How is life right now? How are you, Don? How are you, Dave? What's going on?
You know, we're doing great. Actually, we're both at the All-Star game down in Washington, D.C.
You were there?
We were there, so we were taking in some baseball. Don was with his family down there. I finally got a chance to meet his young children. They're the same age as when I first met him, and his dad, Don, who we'll talk about.
Yeah.
But how are you doing, Don? Because this campaign is about your dad and well beyond.
Well, it is a trip down memory lane, and as Dave referenced, the first time I ever met Dave was when I was 6 years old in Seattle at the 1979 All-Star game. And then 4 years later, my dad and Dave played together with the Yankees and really have been really friends for about 4 decades now. But we're just, I think, blessed to be able to be a part of this campaign that's sponsored by Amgen. Obviously, it affected my family's life quite a bit, multiple myeloma. My dad was diagnosed actually here in New York City when he was a bench coach with the Mets in 2003 that he had it. We hadn't heard much about it, hadn't really heard anything about it. Incurable blood cancer, it tends to affect African Americans twice as much as other parts of the population. And so we just feel blessed to be able to raise awareness and try and give back and pay it forward.
And I would add, since it's really a formidable opponent, I'm pleased that they would consider me as kind of a spokesperson, an advocate. Steve Garvey will be in there too, former great Dodger. But to be able to talk about this and give just people a better understanding of what's going on. Donnie said that it's an incurable blood cancer, and the people really have to know more about it, so they've developed a campaign, which is Myeloma MVP. His dad was an MVP, but this is about most valuable plan.
Most valuable plan.
And really, if you go, I'll just say this, and you can go whichever direction you want, but if you go online to myelomaexplained.com,
right, yeah.
And it has all kinds of tools and information that'll help you formulate a plan and strategy for your loved ones, your caregivers, and yourself, so that you can be more instrumental in whatever approach you take to this disease.
Yeah, Dave, You mentioned you've known him for so long. You've been in each other's lives for so long. How did you come to meet Don Sr.? How did you guys come? I know you played ball together. Did you know each other before that? Was that when you first met, or?
Yeah, I mean, well, when you play professional baseball, it's a fraternity. It's only a small group of people, and when you see someone that's substantial and that can really play, and then I also noted a guy that was giving back to the community. He was doing some. I had my own foundation, and here's another person in another league, an MVP, a person that's well-known, well-respected, a leader, giving back. He was working on cystic fibrosis at the time. And then we would go to player representative meetings at the end of the year, and then that's when you spend days together formulating a strategy as part of the union. How do we make more in this minimum salary and all these other things? And so I always noted a guy that was thoughtful, committed, strong, leadership. We had a lot of the same qualities, so we developed that over time.
It's pretty amazing. We've got a couple of photos I wanted to bring up that they had sent over to us here. One of the first ones. This is 1979.
Those sideburns, man.
Look at
Yeah, baby.
You ever think about growing those back in? You ever?
No, I'll leave it like it is for the moment. But, I mean, Don was, like I said, a significant player. He was, I think, American, not only run, batted in leader, but he was probably MVP of the league. Yeah. And I was a young buck, couple years younger, just coming up trying to do my thing. So that's a good one.
Yeah.
You mentioned that you guys were at the All-Star game. I don't want to get too inside baseball here, literally, but there's a great question that I always wanted, because you've played so many of these games, and you've gone toe-to-toe with so many of the greats. Is there anybody that stands out in your mind, Dave, as somebody that was...
Well, there's all kinds of players that stand out. I mean, I've played with some significant players. I mean, I played with... Ricky Henderson was one of the best players that I ever played with. Pete Rose was, I mean, if you look in the dictionary, probably look at relentless. Not gambling, but relentless. He could really play. I just played with a lot of people, but I'm going to say this while I think of it. I never think of this because there was one guy that was a nemesis to me. Normally you say, I hit everybody. I hit Steve Carlton, hit Nolan Ryan. And there's a guy, they said, who was tough on you? A guy named Buzz Capra. Nobody would know who he is. I probably never even seen his face on a baseball card. But I said, why are they bringing this guy in to face me? Well, they looked through the 3-ring binder. You don't have any hits off of this guy. He come in the game, double play. Oh, man. So
now that's interesting to me that they looked it up and brought it up. So you didn't even remember Buzz, but the numbers would later come back and show you. Apparently my rival was Buzz.
There's always somebody that slips in there. The big-time guys, I'm ready for Nolan Ryan. He's throwing 100 miles an hour in a curveball that'll lock you up, so to speak. But the guys that had nothing special, sometimes they get you, and they keep getting away with it.
You and I, you're going, who's Buzz? But wherever Buzz lives, everybody in his bar goes, oh, yeah, he never friggin' shuts up. Buzz, the guy that Dave couldn't hit off of.
I'm telling you.
Buzz is always in here.
And I'm saying this, and the guy probably call me up or email me or something. Hey, Winnie, I used to get you.
Well, yeah, I wanted to bring up these photos, too, for another reason. One of the fun parts about watching the All-Star game is that there is, I was watching this, too, they allowed social media. People were posting from the dugout. Everybody's having a good time and palling around. And the friendship between you and Don, Dave, it's pretty one of those, like, for the age books, like one of those great all-time friendships. He was a groomsman in your wedding as well. I think we have a picture of that. This is your life, by the way.
Oh, look at this, man.
Bit.
Wow. See, hey, there's Don on the left. There's my brother Steve. He was my best man. My man JD. I don't know where JD is now. And legal counsel at the time, Jeff Klein. He's a big lawyer in New York. But we were down in New Orleans, got married there 30 years ago, just doing it one time. That's the way you go. And all was good. Always good, man.
Oh, I bring it
That's
up.
That's nice.
Because I love this story, and I just also love the context behind you guys partnering up now with Amgen. You're partnering together. You've been in each other's lives for so long that it's a very natural partnership to come together and do this. But I wanted to hear it from your side. Is what led to this campaign? What led to this partnership with Amgen, and how did it come about for you? When did you decide to start this campaign? the MVP campaign?
Well, I mean, like you said,
Yeah.
it was Amgen who really kind of initiated the process and, reached out to a close friend of my dad. I mean, it has affected other folks in the baseball community as well. And so, obviously, thinking of my dad, but there are others out there that are still battling, and some who have already succumbed, like Vern Rule, which is a guy that my dad coached with, right? He succumbed.
Mel Stottlemyre, Yankee great. He's still living. I think he was diagnosed probably in 1999 or 2000, and he's still around. And the things that Don's dad went through, because there's remission and then it comes back, you never know how you feel. That's the same thing that all the guys, I won't say the guys, but the people go through. So it's kind of dreaded, insidious disease in that respect.
I do want to mention one other thing in terms of a new connection that I discovered about Dave and my dad. My dad was drafted out of Austin High School, 1967, by the Baltimore Orioles. The first place that he went was Bluefield, West Virginia. So I don't know if you know much about Bluefield, West Virginia, but you can probably imagine what it was like in 1967. And his roommate there was Bob Gritch, who became my godfather. But I just realized he was drafted by the Orioles in '69 and said no to Bluefield. So
out of high school? Well, it wasn't too hard. I won't put it on Bluefield. I've never been there, but I'll say that we got $500 and a bus ride to Bluefield, West Virginia for you. I said, no thanks, I'll go to college,
Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing. After all these years, you're still learning new things and finding out. It must have been a trip, Dave, when you met his kids and you realized you put it together. His kids are the same age as when you met Don Jr.
I mean, it's part of that baseball family and everything. And we have so many guys. I mean, sometimes we're at the age where a lot of our guys are not around anymore. But as we mentioned, for a campaign like this, I mean, I appreciated they called me because they knew my relationship with Don while he was alive. I mean, we did a number of things together and said, would you participate? And to me, it's kind of, how do I continue his legacy, continue to affect people in a positive way? And over the weeks that we have regained our acquaintance and gotten to know each other better and shared stories, it's been pretty incredible. I mean, we've done a lot of interviews like this, and we appreciate the opportunity for people like yourself that reach out, and you can touch so many people. And if you can pass on the links, the connection, the information to the people that you reach on all the platforms, it'd be much appreciated, because we just want to make the best of it. I mean, there's a lot of good causes out there and issues that people can confront, but if we can make some headway in this, because at this point, it's incurable, but at best, we can help make families know how, and individuals who are afflicted with it, how to deal with it in a much better way. And usually the outcomes are a lot better.
Well, I mean, to that end, I'll just take a second to once again remind everyone, MyelomaExplained.com, it's MYELOMA Explained.com, is a great resource. It has the campaign on there. It has a ton of information just to the end of helping get that message out there and spread that word.
Yeah.
You touched on something very early in that response that I wanted to get back into, which is that baseball family, Don, I wonder what it was like for you growing up surrounded by these myths and legends, these superheroes, if you will. We got there's another great picture, by the way, of Don Jr. and his dad. I mean, just so many great moments. Look at that. So I just wonder what that was like for you growing up, and what that's done for you to your relationship with the game of baseball. How you watch a game of baseball at this point with your kids.
So I think a couple of things. I was really fortunate. My dad included me in everything. I was like right here. I'm 14 years old. I don't know where that is. I don't know if that's Detroit or wherever that is. But I'd be traveling sometimes by myself between cities. So you learn how to travel. That's number one. I think if you are anywhere close to a baseball family, you learn how to travel and take care of that. The other thing I would say is that watching a game, my dad, we've been talking about this thing called the kangaroo court. I'm not sure if people know what that means in the baseball sense, but it really is a player-led system of accountability. right? So it's not about the manager telling you that you missed a bunt or missed a sign. It's about your peers saying, I got a book, and I'm going to write it down, and we're going to tally that up, and we're going to collect it, and we're going to, fraternize at the end of the year, but we need to hold each other accountable in some ways. And so whenever I watch a game, I'm just thinking, well, that's a $25 fine right there,
Exactly.
So that's how, so that's one of the legacies that he instilled in me, and but also I think in life, accountability is a big thing, leadership is a big thing, paying it forward, community service. Those are all values that I just really absorbed from him. I will share a story that I told recently, and also at his funeral. He didn't get to he played 15 seasons almost before he got to a World Series. And he had been in 4 American League Championship Series up until that point. And back then, right, it was just one playoff, and then you advance to the World Series. And those series were 5 games. They were best of 5. And 1982 was his 4th time trying. They were up 2-0, lost 3 straight to Milwaukee, Robin Yount, Harvey Wallbangers, that group. First time ever that a ball club had come down from a 2-0 deficit to rally back and win. And I remember going back into the clubhouse, and we're in the training room, and there's probably about 6 players. And you can't hear a sound. The only thing you can hear are the Milwaukee fans celebrating in the background. You could hear a pin drop in that training room. And after a while, my dad just kind of tapped me on the knee and said, let's go. I'm like, where are we going? He's like, we're going to the other clubhouse. We're going to the Brewers clubhouse to congratulate them. And so, that's just a lesson you don't forget in terms of sportsmanship, in terms of leadership, in terms of, understanding that failure is a part of this game. Yeah. Right? And we got to pick ourselves up and move on and congratulate the person that won, and let's go.
That's an amazing story. One, thank you for sharing that. And 2, I mean, reading about your dad, I categorize these guys that you grew up around with as superheroes, but Don, especially his commitment to the game, and 14 years he battled this. But I read a quote for, I think it was 2000, I wrote it down, 2014, 2013, he did an interview, and they asked him about what it's been like battling this disease. He goes, I don't let it affect me. It hasn't stopped me from doing anything I normally do. I manage it. I do it. And it's but that's who he was. That's the person. That's who he is at his core. The reality is that is so much easier said than done. You got to be a really strong person to be able to do that. And your dad's very much the epitome of that. What were there other lessons you learned over the years going on this journey with him and going through this battle with him?
Where do you start?
I'll set the clock.
Where do you start in that? Number one is about respect. I think at the end of the day, community, societies, relationships thrive on respect. And so respecting this, a person the same way you would if they're the president of the United States versus if they're a person on the street, that was one of the big lessons that I learned. And that's a lesson that will carry you very, very far in life. And so that I would just kind of put that up there. I've talked about the leadership, the accountability, the humility. Not a guy that was really kind of tooting his own horn, right? And
I would add, he certainly wasn't two-faced. He was straight up. He'd tell you like it is, but not trying to impose his will or anything. But he was trustworthy. You could count on him. He had strength. He had integrity, and he led by, I think, the big thing, by example. It's not like do as I say, just watched him, how he did, how he went about his business, how he conducted his life, even like you said, with the adversity, huge adversity facing with him with this disease. You rarely knew that he was facing that. You knew it was that strong countenance, that tough approach. I'm going to battle this, but I'm not going to necessarily put it off, put it in front of other people at the time. You wouldn't know it.
I'm going to say we're going to take some questions from the audience. Before we do that, we got a couple of those. We're going to do that in a second. But what is, we got this campaign. It's out there. What's the message you hope people take away? As you go out, you do all these interviews. What's the thing you want people to really take away from the campaign?
First of all, exposure, education, call to action. learn something about it, do something about it. And right now, as we start, you saw some of the PSAs. We're doing all of these interviews. The campaign will continue. Ourselves, other people, the online component, myelomaexplained.com.
Yeah.
What else would you say?
I would just say one of the things that, even from my dad's experience, was that the diagnosis is not necessarily like, oh yeah, it was they found it kind of back way, if you will, and so that's, I think, another just thing that at least I learned from my dad's experience with this, and certainly Dave talked about the relapse and remission, but I think having a plan and making sure that you in many ways stick to that plan to the best that you can.
It's so funny you mentioned the back way the diagnosis kind of came. In that interview that I was reading, one of the things your dad was really working on was trying to raise funds to build a database, to get the database together. That was in 2013. I wasn't able to. Did we get the database? Was he able to get that? Are you close to getting the database? What's the story with that?
I'm actually not familiar with the status of the database
cool.
right now, but certainly Multiple Myeloma Research Foundation was one of the partners that he partnered
Exactly,
with.
yeah, for sure. He did a lot of work and a lot of amazing things, and thank you guys for carrying the torch and putting this campaign out there. We've got some questions, some microphones in the room. Let's get to it. First one looks like it's right here in the front.
Hey guys, just want to say congrats on all the work you guys are doing for this. I'm sure people are going to be noticing a lot about it. I was just wondering, for those who are not familiar with myeloma, what do you want people to know about it?
Well, I think number one, what I saw, it is very tough and very brutal. And since my dad was diagnosed, I've had the chance to talk to other people who their parents potentially, actually had it in the past. And so it is interesting that, he was able to live with 14 years after being diagnosed. We hope that more people can live longer with it. But I think that, once again, it goes back to really raising awareness, so that, we can make some progress on this disease.
I would add to it, again, it's an incurable blood cancer. There are, as we say, there are about 125,000 people, I guess, in America that have this right now that we know about. When most people are diagnosed, they say, I'm not feeling quite right. And they do all kinds of tests. And so it's not the first thing people look for. And so sometimes it pops up and say, oh, no wonder that's what's going on. So it's kind of insidious in that way. It could sneak up on you. You don't know that. But a lot of people have it. But a lot of people, you could be diagnosed just not knowing that's the case.
Well, we got one more. We got time for one more. Let's do it right here. Green couch.
So this is a question for both of you guys. So what does the game of baseball mean to you guys?
Well, it's meant everything to. The question was, what has baseball meant to me? It's been my life, really. I'm glad I found something that I loved when I was a youngster, about 8 years old, and it loved me back. Gave me the opportunity to get an education, travel the world, meet all kinds of people, have a good name, reputation, and just help me advance my own personal position in life and that for my family. And I think all of the lessons that baseball teaches, this is what people just don't know. It teaches you about it teaches you about teamwork, being on time, confidence, overcoming obstacles, because you're going to face them every day. Even when you're good, you fail most of the time. And a lot of people can't handle that. So I think it's helped me with my entire character and being and my stance, my position in life, station in life, if you will.
I think the one word that comes to mind is baseball's meant opportunity, not just for myself, but also my family. I think it has given us exposure to people and experiences that, gosh, never would have had the opportunity to, experience if it were not for the game of baseball. And so, aside from kind of what happens, between the lines, the friendships, the relationships, like I said, the travel, the experiences, you go to new cities, you're able to see new things, meet different people, eat different types of food. So it really opened up a new world for myself, especially as a young kid.
Can I say one more thing related to that? And this is because I'm a big advocate for this as well. You know, when you talk about youth sports, I mean, everybody now, the culture and the economy has morphed, it's changed, it's evolved, where everybody thinks, I have to put my kid in this sport from they're 6 years old. They need training, they need camps, I need to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars, and they're burning the kids out. They're putting them in things that they don't even know if they like. Any parent, any coach, anybody that is trying to develop a young person, let them have fun. Don't be focused on, well, you got to be like Don Baylor or Dave Winfield or Tom Seaver or whatever. Man, the percentage that people are going to get that far is very, very small. Those that make it into college is very de minimis, very small. Let the kids have some fun. When I finished playing, I was a Little League coach. Coached my son, coached the kids, and even those that weren't very good, I taught them how to participate at the level that they should be playing. They contributed, they had fun, they played longer, they were healthy, families are happy. From some kids who went nowhere, but they enjoyed their life, and others, got a couple in Major League Baseball too. So I have the whole experience, but I said, look, Coach Winfield wants nothing from you except to enjoy yourself, enjoy this game of baseball, because it can mean a lot to you.
It's amazing. Well, guys, thank you so much for your questions. Thank you to both of you for doing this, getting out there and taking time, making us one of your stops. I'm going to remind everybody again, myelomaexplained.com. Tons of information, great resource. You can see the PSAs there. Before we say goodbye and let you go, last word, anything else you guys are working on outside? Are you writing another book? Are you doing anything, Don? What's going on? Give us a plug before you go. Let's go. Tell us what you're working on.
Tell them what you do so you know. I mean, you work giving back.
So I work for the Annie Casey Foundation. I really throughout my life have worked to improve policies to expand economic opportunity for low-income Americans. And right now we're working on the crushing dynamic of household debt, whether or not it's medical debt, court fees and fines, or high-cost products. And so there's a lot of communities and households that have negative net worth. And so we're trying to, the best we can, get people to zero. So that's what we're working on.
Amazing.
And for me, the way I give back, I've done a lot, and I will continue to do so. I'm an advisor to the Baseball Players Association, the union for baseball players. And, you know, there are 1,200 guys on the 40-man roster for 30 teams, and they all have issues on how to try to have a career. And part of what I do is try to teach them, your career is going to be short. Even if you think, I played 22 years, the average person plays 4. And when they're out of the game, maybe by the time they're 30, they haven't thought about, where do I go? What do I do? So I try to keep their head right, thinking about the future, thinking about the present, and I know I make a big difference for these guys. They still listen to me, because I've been around a long time. But, you know, you try to stay in shape and stuff. You don't want to walk in the locker room. They said, didn't you used to be Dave Winfield? No. Still am.
Still am. Unbelievable. Well, you, sir, are a legend. Don, the work you're doing is incredible. Everybody, please make a ridiculous amount of applause. Join me in thanking Dave Winfield and Don Baylor Jr. for being here. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you, Matt.